Well, one more time, Professor Chomsky, and you are, as I've reviewed not only the documentary, which shows you speaking around the world and talking to just about, seemed to me, every reporter in the northern and the southern hemisphere, you're remarkably patient with these similar questions. One more time for the highly regarded Pozner and Donahue program. Here you are, the highlight of your career as a communicator on our program. America gets, mainstream media gives essentially the same message because why?
Why the same?
Yeah.
Well, we have to look what the message is. First of all, the message is one of remarkable subordination to power. Now, power in the United States doesn't happen to be in the state. It's not a centralized military bureaucratic state like in the Soviet Union.
Right.
Power in the United States primarily lies in corporations, in the corporate world. There's very narrow concentration of control over resources, over investment decisions, and so on and so forth. And that affects everything. Can't help affecting everything. It affects the government because this means that there's a very close link between governmental power and corporate power. Furthermore, just the ability to make investment decisions and financial decisions places bounds on what any government could do.
Yes.
Furthermore, now let's go to the major media. What are the major media? Well, they're huge corporations. Okay, the New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, they first of all are large corporations, quite profitable ones, in fact. Secondly, they're parts of even bigger conglomerates, like, Westinghouse and GE and so on. Now, like any corporation, they sell a product on a market. This is a market, roughly a market, a kind of a state-guided market society. What's the product and what's the market? Well, the market's advertisers. That is other businesses. So they're selling a product to other businesses. Corporations are selling a product to other businesses. What's the product? Well, the product is audiences. Now, for the major media, the ones that kind of set the agenda, they're selling elite audiences, privileged audiences. The New York Times, say, is targeting privileged elite sectors of the population. That's their audience, and they're trying to sell that audience to other businesses. Now, so we have to begin with, just on the most elementary grounds, we look at a system. Suppose we're Martians. We're looking at this system. We say, okay, here are huge corporations selling privileged audiences to other businesses. Well, what picture of the world do you expect to come out of that? Then we begin to add other factors. If let's say you're the chief diplomatic correspondent of the New York Times, or a pundit on the op-ed page, and you want to really have important, insights into the government. Well, we all know how that's done. You have lunch with the Secretary of State. He tells you the lies that he wants to appear tomorrow. You write them and you say, a high source in Washington, my intrepid reporting has discovered that a high source in Washington said so-and-so. In fact, if you compare the internal declassified record, of, say, people like Dean Acheson's decisions, and you look at, say, James Reston's columns, they're pretty close. And the same will be true about James Baker and Thomas Friedman. And furthermore, this is an open secret. We know that this is the way. It's not a big secret in the journalistic profession that this is. Now, in order to maintain those contacts, you better present the world a certain way, or those contacts are going to be cut off. You'll lose your opportunity to have to appear to have special insight, to have leaks, to be able to come across with a story, a couple hours before the next person, and so on. Plus, now, in order, there's an interplay here which requires power in order to maintain your own power. That's another factor over and above the just structural and institutional properties.
Go along, you get along. But to those wounded mainstream people, Jeff Greenfield of ABC News said you were from Neptune. You're wacko.
Not only that, but the majority of people in the Soviet Union by the late 1980s, in fact before that, would say to you, well, we know that these papers are controlled.
Absolutely.
We know. Well, whereas most Americans would say to you, Professor, give me a break. This isn't true. I have a free press. I get all the information I need.
The New York...
Are Americans less intelligent?
We report on the pollution of major corporations. We report on all these things, and here you are dropping this...
And
but
think about this.
I'll give you a chance to answer. You're not...
But this is a very...
Who controls this? You're not allowed to cut us off. I want to impress Professor Chomsky. They won't cut us off if I won't let them. Watch this. You have...